Expect a miracle.
You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Life Today Live. Randy Robinson here with you. And quick programming note, this is the last live interview I'm doing of the year, because for the next 2 weeks I will be doing the top 10 programs from the last 2 years, which is since I started doing this daily thing. And so that'll actually be fun. So I'll be doing the intros for those and then showing the top 10 roll-ins, and or top 10 interviews. You'll just have to come back over the next 2 weeks between now and the end of the year and see what the most popular ones are. They're good ones, because I talk very little in those. Now, the other thing that's going on in my life, I don't know about you guys, but I just moved last year. After 19 years in the same house, my wife and I got rid of all the kids in a good way, like they graduated from our house, and we moved. And we still, 6 months later, we got this one room where it's just random stuff. And it's like, we've collected these things over the years, and it's like, we're last night we were like, okay, we got to get rid of that pile of junk over there. And my wife bought a chair, and she's like, does it look, okay. We are not that great at getting rid of clutter and organizing and making it look good. And after a couple of years of COVID, especially, I mean, life can feel this way anyway, but with the craziness of the world, sometimes it's like your life just feels a little cluttered, and like I need to get rid of some things and maybe organize something over here. And so today's guest is hopefully going to help me in both of those things, because Victoria Duerstock is a designer, and she has a book that I know you ladies especially going to like. It is called Guard Your Heart and Home, and it looks like this. It's available now, and it's a beautiful book. So if they deliver fast enough for Christmas, you still have time for this gift. But it's not just about designing your home. It is about, finding the good space and peace in your home, but it's about finding good space and peace right here. Victoria, good to have you on Life Today Live.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Randy. I'm excited to be with you.
So I did my best on the intro there to set you up, but I want you to tell people what it is that you are doing and sort of blending the physical with the emotional and spiritual, because I like the idea. It's a great picture. But where did this come from for you?
It's really fascinating. As I study God's word, there are often parallels just to my daily life. I don't know why, but I see kind of lessons everywhere I look. And one of those things is I was beginning to work on books in the first place just a few years ago, trying to find a way to get my foot in the door. There was this unique opportunity to talk about our home and talk about our heart in a short devotional format, just something that was a bite-sized snippet, because I have been busy for years raising a family, working to stay sane. And I need sometimes a bite-sized snippet for my day that I can meditate on. And I thought, what if there was a way to focus a thought about our home and about our hearts all into one little package? And that's kind of how these things came together. I really believe the Lord just kind of put some ideas in my heart to kind of pursue as I started looking at design basics like flow and harmony. You think about focal point and all elements that are actually part of design, but also what we find in God's word. And so it's really been a neat process over the last few years to unpack some of these truths, and then to land now on Guard Your Heart and Home, pursuing peace in your living space, because I really wanted to write a book that was really targeted for marriage.
Okay, so help me out here, because you threw out a bunch of terms that I think sound great. I have no idea what they actually mean. so I mean, I'm guessing focal point would be like the main thing you're looking at, and I can see how in the marriage that would be a big thing, because sometimes we get drowned in it. But what are some of your points that you saw in your work that you're applying to marriage?
Well, I think, when we talk about unity and harmony, you look at marriage and you say, wow, this is a great place to try to apply those words of unity and harmony. My husband and I have hit 25 years this year, which, is a long time. And I'm not sure how I got to be that old, to have hit 25 years of marriage, but it hasn't always been smooth. And it hasn't always been simple or easy. It's taken some work. And some of that has to do with just being harmonious and working in unity with each other, because we're two different people. We think differently. We react differently. We behave differently. We are just two different people. They say opposites attract, right? And so in trying to work unity and harmony into our home, it's also one of those things that you see in design. Some styles don't mix well together. Some things aren't in harmony with each other. And so you feel really at chaos almost in your home.
So when we're totally right there, right? Because you have a house and you collect stuff over 20 years, and then you buy a different style house, and that's part of our problem. Is like we're like, this look great in the other house. It does not fit in here. Now, in a house, you just you put it on Facebook Marketplace or whatever. Someone gives you a little cash and they pick it up. Problem gone. Can't quite do that in the marriage.
No, ill-advised to try that. It's actually more of a heart issue at that point in a marriage, right? It's sometimes it's selfishness that we have to set aside, my rights of, I had a long day and I'm ready to be left alone, and I don't want to make the dinner or do the dishes. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it could be a sinful behavior. Sometimes it's other things that are outside our purview. It's outside of our control. Finances, stress, family, right? Family dynamics. So there's things that sometimes affect our marriage and give us plenty of chaos that we don't have control over. We have to learn how to react better to it.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, one thing that we've tried to do is kind of just go a little simpler. Just kind of get down to some basics. And I'm talking about in trying to do this new house thing, right? And it's like let's just keep it simple here. But I'm guessing that can apply in a marriage, really, because sometimes we get caught up in the little things, and it's like maybe we should take a step back. Does that translate for you?
For me, for sure. I mean, it's easy for the little things. I like to call them the little foxes, like from Song of Solomon. It's easy for those little things to just really drive you crazy about each other sometimes. And they become bigger things, right? It's just, there's this cumulative effect. And eventually you're just like, well, I just don't like this person at all. And the reality is that's not true. And sometimes even when we're hurt, we can feel like that other person has intentionally wounded us in some way, whether it was an argument or angry words or something. And the reality is we've forgotten to believe the best about them. We love each other, and this is simplifying, right? We love each other at the very end of the day, and we don't intentionally try to hurt one another, but we're human, and so we are going to make those mistakes and hurt each other. So simplifying in that way is coming back to the basics of saying, we are rooted and grounded in our relationship with the Lord and with each other. And if that's all we have, that's where we'll start.
Yeah, I found myself in that position years ago. Dennis Prager calls it missing tile syndrome. I don't know if you've heard that, but he's talking about, like, there's some people that walk in the Sistine Chapel and look up and see Michelangelo's great work of art and admire it for its beauty and awe and see the beauty in it. And then there's other people, and I think we all know people like this, who will walk in the room and go, why is that tile missing right over there? They just see the one defect, in the whole thing. And I realized that in my humanity, I had gotten to the point where I had forgotten to appreciate all the wonderful things about my wife. And I was just looking at those missing tiles. And it was not healthy for me. It wasn't healthy for the marriage. And, taking it to prayer, it was like God just said, look, appreciate what she is and quit expecting her to be things that she's not.
Absolutely.
Is that not a fast way to just complicate and mess up a beautiful room, in a sense, a beautiful marriage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, expectations are one of those things that get us into trouble anyway, right? Because no one knows what's in our brain, but we expect our spouse to know what we're thinking. And, when we're two different people, and we're not communicating, then we're providing opportunities to really hurt one another because we're not meeting expectations. But that means we have to all be willing to be honest and open and vulnerable and communicate, which is not simple. It's not simple. It's a challenge. And I don't write like I'm an expert either. I write because these are the things that I'm working on, right. And these are the things I'm working through, and I'm hopeful that they'll be encouraging to someone else. I think that's the thing that has really prompted this the most. I had these high hopes that COVID and all of the isolation bringing us home would reinforce the family and help us grow together. Right. And I think instead it's had kind of that opposite effect. Everybody wants to get away from each other, right? And there's fractures and there's fissures. And so my hope is to encourage people, listen, we're all human. We're all making mistakes, but we're all learning through this process. And marriage does take work. I think our culture's a little averse to this work idea because there's almost this idea that it should come easy. Like if we're in love with each other, this should be easy. And if it's not, then it wasn't right. And we abandon a task because it takes work. But I mean, it does. It takes a faithful day in, day out work at talking, at loving, at being kind, the simple things.
Yeah, honestly, I think if you're in the position where the time at home together has been difficult, I think it's fair to say, is it because the relationship is not what it should be, instead of making excuses for it, blaming COVID or whatever. And really, this time of year, everybody's together and it brings out a lot. It might be a good time to just check the arrangement of the furniture in your heart and see if it can be redone. This is Victoria's book. It's called Guard Your Heart and Home, available right now. You can actually pick it up at her website as well, heartandhomebooks.com. Looks like that. And one of the points that you've got in here that I'm curious about is you talk about how to decorate in a way that reflects a spirit of peace. And I'm guessing that you're not talking just about in here, but also in the home. And I'm curious how that parallel looks in decorating for peace in your home as well as in your heart and your marriage.
Well, it's an interesting concept. You mentioned focal point earlier. We'll just kind of grab that one for a minute. When there's a clear focal point in a room, it's a place for our eye to land. So whether it's a fireplace, that has this nice mantle, or if it's a group of windows, particularly a bay window, or even just a beautiful piece of art, a large piece of art on the wall, whatever that one piece is in the room, it's a place for our eye to land. And when we have that, we have this inner feeling of rest. And I think that this is just a beautiful picture of when our focal point in our hearts is in the right place as well, when it's on Jesus, who is the founder and the finisher of our faith, then we can also be at rest. But when there's multiple focal points in a room, too many big, large things that we're trying to figure out, what am I supposed to look at when I walk in? That's when the chaos and the tension and the anxiety builds. And so it's really thinking, again, kind of back to that same idea of simplifying, making sure that there's just this clear focal point in the room, or even decluttering. You talked about it earlier. Clutter can build up in the fastest of ways. And when we make sure to be clear and remove those things that cause us to stumble, right? Like if you've got too many things around, there's nowhere to sit. I mean, you need to simplify.
Yeah. Oh, wait. So here's my question. It's to settle a dispute.
Oh no.
How many pillows on the sofa are too many pillows on the sofa?
Well, it's going to depend on each individual family, right? Oh. It's going to depend on the family. I'm a firm believer in saying your home needs to be decorated in a way that works for your family. And one number is not going to work for everybody. But I think there's a way to decorate with pillows, and then to say, when we're sitting, we're going to remove some things so that we have some comfort.
Now, would this be a sin, or would this just be demonic to have towels hanging in the bathroom that you're not allowed to use? I mean, seriously.
You're stepping on toes now, right?
I know.
You're really you've gone to meddling.
All right. Well, let's get it back on track.
Okay.
And a serious question. Now, my wife has gotten some great ideas off of things like Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, that can set a standard that is really hard to keep up with, when you're decorating the home. And I think you would agree that sometimes the comparison and looking at others, especially when we're looking at the polished, the filtered version of others, not just literally physically, but idealistically in a marriage, can get a standard that's impossible to achieve. How important is it that we get a little realistic about things, whether it's decorating or talking about our marriage, and maybe recheck where we're getting our standard for things?
Oh, it's huge. Social media, for all of the good things that can be done because of what we can do with it to get the gospel out, can also be very damaging in the fact that we see the best of what people want to show us or tell us. And it's not often that there's vulnerability or transparency that's occurring on social media. And when we look at things and are inspired by them, there's this fine line between being inspired and being really discouraged and desperate to try to go make something happen. And this is usually where financial issues start to occur, because sometimes we buy things that we can't afford, and then we start to hide purchases because we don't want anybody to know that we've gone and ordered something or we've purchased something. And then it comes back to being dissatisfied. And you talked about this earlier, how important it was to think about how grateful you were for your wife. I think it's the same thing when we're looking at decorating and we're looking at setting up a home. When we start with a spirit of gratefulness for what we do have, then that colors the rest of it as we move out from there.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I honestly don't think you can have any happiness in life if you don't have gratefulness. I just think you're doomed. All right, this is a beautiful book, and I like the piece and everything. It looks great. I'm like, I wish my house looked like that. But I'm curious how the responses that you get when you start drawing this parallel, because what I really like about this whole concept is that it's very visual, and it's like a parable, where you're looking at a home. People start to get the ideas because they're seeing it, and then you take it over into these intangible areas, the inner piece, right. the marriage. What kind of response are you getting to this picture, this parable that you're drawing for people?
So beautiful, because there's so many people out there that also see the same thing. I'm not uncovering some great deep spiritual truth or something that's never been said before, but there are others out there who feel the same way. There's a lot of faith that happens in our homes, and there's parallels and there's things. So, I think that's been the exciting part about putting these books together, is that several of my Instagram friends that I've met along the way have contributed their pictures, their tips. They've just been really supportive of these projects, and people that, you like to follow, like the Design Twins and the Tattered Pew, and just so many dear ladies that I don't actually know in real life that have jumped on board to support the idea of talking about our homes, talking about decor and beauty and creating beauty in our homes, but also talking about how that affects our souls. And it's been just this really, really neat journey.
So I'm over here looking on victoriaduerstock.com, and you've got all the little icons for the social media. I'm guessing that this is like a big way that you connect with people that are interested in the decor and yet also the spiritual and emotional aspect of it. And is that the best place for them to get with you?
It is. Instagram is full of the visual, of course. So we try to definitely hang out there. And it is. It's just been, social media can be used in a positive way if we are intentional.
Yep, absolutely. And I love it. Love what you're doing. Again, if you are looking for something, a last minute Christmas gift, this is a nice looking one you can put on your coffee table. And actually spark some conversations. I think a lot of times, maybe this may be a great entryway into talking about some spiritual things with people who just appreciate the aesthetic beauty of, the home decor and things like that. Victoria, I appreciate what you're doing. Is there anything else that I haven't covered, I haven't asked that you want people to know?
I think it's wonderful that you just said what you just said. The goal with these books has always been to spark a gospel conversation, to make a gift that's beautiful, that maybe someone wouldn't necessarily go pick up a devotional on purpose. Maybe they would rather have something pretty to look at or pick up off a table. And that's what's occurring. People are being able to do that, and they're finding people are picking it up and having gospel conversations with people in a really natural way. But it's also something that brings attention back to the Lord. And that makes me very, very happy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Appreciate you doing that. I appreciate taking the time to share it with our audience. Thank you very much. And have a great Christmas.
Thank you so much. I hope you guys get settled in your home and you have a great Christmas as well.
Yeah, well, the kids are all coming home for Christmas, and they're bringing their dogs, so it's about to get unsettled real fast. But
we'll enjoy the chaos for a little bit.
We will, and then we'll be glad for the peace when they leave. But it's great. It's wonderful. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Be sure to check out Victoria. If you want, man, this is your thing, man, go find her on all the social medias. Just go to victoriaduerstock.com. It's in the chat for those of you that are chat enabled, and you can connect with her, and you could see lots of pretty pictures and get some really good ideas, and not completely ignore the more important things in life, which she's addressing as well in a great way. So appreciate that. Reminder, next 2 weeks, top 10 of the last 2 years of Life Today Live. So join us starting Monday, number 10, and we'll go all the way through, right through the end of the year, and we'll be back live in January with more great guests. And I appreciate all you guys watching, because the only reason this show has lasted 2 years the way it has is because you guys watch and you share and you follow and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to 2022 being even more exciting with more great guests like Victoria today. So see you in 2022, but sort of see you for the next 2 weeks as we hit the top 10. Appreciate you guys. Check out the website, check out the book, and we'll see you again next time on Life Today Live.
They will find no drought in God's ever-flowing and abundant springs of grace.